Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Podcast. Today is Tuesday, October 15th, 2019. Today I'm going to recap yesterday's Game 3 between the Nationals and the Cardinals. We can look ahead to tonight's Game 4 and today's Game 3 between the Yankees and the Astros. Monday Night Football, we'll recap that. We'll recap the NHL games from last night, look ahead to tonight's game, same for the NBA preseason. We'll do guess the lines for Week 8 of college football and Week 7 of the NFL, and my best bet of the day. Okay, we're going to start in baseball, where the Nationals take a commanding 3-0 series lead with an 8-1 win over the St. Louis Cardinals. Steven Strasburg was just utterly dominant in this game. And Jack Flaherty was not. Obviously, Strasburg gets the win, Flaherty the loss. Bottom of the third, RBI single, Adam Eaton, 1-0 Nats. RBI double, Anthony Rendon, 2-0 Nats. 2-run double, Howie Kendrick, 4-0 Nats. Bottom of the fifth, another RBI double for Howie Kendrick, 5-0 Nats. RBI double, Ryan Zimmerman, 6-0 Nats. Bottom of the sixth, home run, Victor Robles, welcome back. He was out for the last couple of games. 7-0 Nats. Top of the seventh, RBI single, Paul DeJong, 7-1. By the way, that run scored on an error by Juan Soto. So, second run of the series for the Cardinals is scored on an error, just like the first run they scored in the series. And the bottom of the seventh, RBI single, Ryan Zimmerman, 8-1 Nationals. That's your final. Strasburg, 7 innings, 7 hits, no runs, no walks, and 12 strikeouts. Fernando Rodney, an inning and 2 strikeouts. And coming in after Rodney was Tanner Rainey, a scoreless ninth inning with 2 strikeouts. Meanwhile, for the Cardinals, Jack Flaherty had his worst game of the postseason. 4 innings, 5 hits, 4 runs, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. Ty Webb, 2/3 of an inning, a hit, and an earned run. John Brebbia, 2/3 of an inning, 3 hits, 2 runs, and a strikeout. Genesis Cabrera, 2/3 of an inning. And Daniel Ponce de Leon, 2 innings, 2 hits, and a run, a walk, and 4 strikeouts. The first game on the docket today, 4 o'clock, Fox Sports 1, the Astros at the Yankees. Garrett Cole, Luis Severino. Should be a fun pitching matchup. Both of these guys were pretty good in their first couple playoff starts. Cole had 2 starts against the Rays, dominant in both of them. And then Severino got in and out of trouble on his own against the Twins in his lone start in that series. I think the Yankees have a real chance to steal this game. A real chance. Because it's Yankee Stadium at home. I think I said before the series, I don't know if it was on a podcast or on Twitter, that I thought that the Yankees had a better chance to win Game 3 than a better chance to win Game 2 against Verlander. Only because of home field advantage, not strictly because of the Cole Verlander thing. I just think that Yankee Stadium and the crowd, and I just could see a world where the Astros implode, especially out of the bullpen. Garrett Cole, I think, will pitch well. He's just on a roll. Can't bet against him right now. It's similar to Steven Strasburg with the Nationals. So, without Giancarlo Stanton in that Yankees lineup again, I don't know if they will be able to score enough against Houston. I think Severino will be fine too. But I think ultimately Garrett Cole will be too much for the Yankees. And I think there's a chance he goes 8 innings. And then Roberto Osuna closes out. And he owns the Yankees, by the way. That's the only team he literally pitches well against. That's actually a good team. So give me the Astros by a score. Let's say 3-2 Houston. And I think Yankees rally late and have the go-ahead run at the plate. Fans are going to be thinking about a walk-off home run possibility, and ultimately they get denied. Astros go up 2-1, courtesy of Cole. I think he'll go 8 innings, maybe give up 1 run, strike out 12, give up 5 hits. Maybe something fluky happens. Yankees get another run. But I'm going to say 3-2 Astros win this game to take a 2-1 series lead. And again, I would not rule out the Yankees in this spot. I think they have a real chance to win this game. Because if Cole implodes, that bullpen at Yankee Stadium is untrustworthy. And the Yankees crowd, like their offense and their pitching, like thrives off of it. And you saw that against the Twins in the first round. You saw that against the Astros 2 years ago. It didn't work in Game 3 against the Red Sox last year, but that was solely because Luis Severino didn't know what time it was, and he was a disaster in that game against the Red Sox. And by the way, this is the biggest game of Luis Severino's life, and I think if he fails in this game, you're going to be starting to hear comparisons between him and Clayton Kershaw when it comes to the playoffs. So that's something to look out for the Yankees. And conversely, if the Astros go down in this game, then there's going to be a lot of people saying that the series is over and the Yankees will wrap it up at home. But I wouldn't agree with that, especially if tomorrow night's game is rained out. There's a distinct possibility that tomorrow night's game is rained out, and Game 4 would be Thursday night, and then Game 5 would be Friday night, and then Saturday and Sundays, Game 6 and 7. And that really hurts the Yankees in this series, in my opinion, because then you'll see Verlander in Game 5, Cole in Game 6. So that would possibly mean Astros in 6 if it's rained out, especially if the Astros win today. If the Yankees win today and there's a rain out tomorrow, different story. Then it's probably Yankees in 7, if that's the case. So I think this game is humongous. I did pick Astros in 7 before the series, and I'm sticking with that prediction. And that is assuming that tomorrow night's game gets rained out. But I think if tomorrow night's game gets rained out and the Yankees go down 2-1, I think Astros in 6 is very likely. But if the Yankees win and there's a rain out tomorrow, then Yankees in 7 or 6 is very likely. So the winner of today's game, in my opinion, wins the series. That's the bottom line. And tonight, 8 o'clock, TBS, Cardinals-Nationals, Game 4. Nationals going for this week, but Patrick Corbin on the mound. And Dakota Hudson starting for the Cardinals. I think the Nats get it done tonight. They're the better team. They've been the better team this entire series. I can't believe how big favorites they are tonight. They're bigger favorites tonight than the Astros are in Yankee Stadium. That's because the Astros are in Yankee Stadium, not in Houston. That's why. And the Nats are obviously home. Give me the Nats. I think they get it done tonight. I think that it could be another blowout, potentially. So I think the over is absolutely in play, whatever that is. So give me the Nationals to sweep and move on to their first World Series pretty much in Washington Nationals history. So give me the Nats tonight. I think the Nationals win by a score of, let's say, 6-1. I think it's another sort of blowout type of game, and the Cardinals offense really has gone cold in this series and only been scoring on errors for what it's worth. All right, Monday Night Football. The Packers defeated the Lions by a score of 23-22, courtesy of the officials, as the Packers go to 5-1. Detroit's 2-1. There's so many questionable calls, including 2 on Trey Flowers, the Lions' big free agent acquisition, and that ultimately came back to bite him as the Packers get the field goal to win the game from Mason Crosby, and they are now 5-1, and Detroit has every right to be complaining. It was illegal use of hands on Trey Flowers both times, and then it just pisses me off how Packers fans think that Kerryon Johnson touchdown shouldn't have counted. Well, guess what? It should have. He crossed the line. So get over that and stop making shit up. And you won this game solely because of the officials, and you might be the 1 seed because of this result. So Packers are very lucky in my mind to win this game. And next up for them, they play the Raiders, and for the Lions, next they have the Who do the Lions have next? I should know this. Oh, the Vikings at home. So that's a big game for Detroit to bounce back and get back into that division race. And by the way, the Packers now 3-0 in division play this year. So that's something to watch out for when it comes to tiebreakers. The NHL. Couple games last night. There was a couple games during the day that we went over before, after I did the podcast because there were matinee games yesterday and I did the podcast late yesterday. The Sabres defeated the Stars 4-0. A big win for the Buffalo Sabres. They are 5-0-1 on the season. Dallas is 1-5-1. Number 1 started the game, 25 saves on 25 shots, Carter Hutton. Number 2 started the game with a goal and assist, Victor Olofsson. Number 3 started the game with a goal, Sam Reinhart. Avs over the Capitals 6-3. Colorado still undefeated. They're 5-0-0. Washington's 3-2-2. Number 1 started the game with a goal and 2 assists, Nazem Kadri. Number 2 started the game with a goal and 2 assists, Mikko Rantanen. Number 3 started the game with a goal and assist, Alex Ovechkin. Blackhawks over the Oilers 3-1 to deal the Oilers their first loss of the season. And, by the way, that was the Blackhawks' first win of the season, so do and do come in hand when it comes to the Blackhawks' first win and the Oilers' first loss. Blackhawks 1-2-1, Edmonton 5-1-0. Number 1 started the game with 27 saves on 28 shots, Corey Crawford. Number 2 started the game with a goal, Patrick Kane. Number 3 started the game with 32 saves on 34 shots, Mike Smith. So Mike Smith off to a good start this season, despite getting the loss in this game. And that was a key reason why the Edmonton Oilers are off to a good start this season. The slate tonight at 7 o'clock, you have the Wild at the Maple Leafs. NBCSN, the Lightning at the Canadiens. This is a big prove-it spot for Montreal to prove that they can compete with the best in their division. Toronto is in a similar spot, I believe about 4 or 5 days ago, and they failed miserably at home. Do I think this will be something similar? Possibly. I think the Lightning will win this game by a score of 5-3, and I would bet the over if the total is 7 or lower, or 7.5 or lower. 8 o'clock, the Coyotes at the Jets. 9 o'clock, the Flyers at the Flames. 10 o'clock, the Red Wings at the Canucks. And the Predators at the Golden Knights. And 10:30, the Hurricanes at the Kings. So the only winless team in the league right now is the Devils. So that's something to look out for. When will they eventually get their first win? I think they have a golden opportunity to do so at some point this week. NBA preseason. We had a couple games yesterday. Heat over the Hawks, 120-87. Tyler Harrow continues to impress in the preseason. 23 points, 9 for 14 shooting. Trae Young had 23 for Atlanta. John Collins had 14 for Atlanta. DeAndre Bembry had 13 off the bench. Vince Carter had 10 off the bench. Back to the Heat. Myers Leonard had 15. Bam Adebayo had 15 off the bench. Danielle Jones Jr. had 14 and 9 boards. Goran Dragic is coming off the bench for them now. He had 12 off the bench. The Hornets defeated the Grizzlies 120-99. That, to me, is a bit of a shocker because the Hornets, in my mind, are the worst team coming into the season, perhaps. Although Memphis is looked upon as one of the worst teams in the West. Terry Rozier had 24 points. Dwayne Bacon had 21. PJ Washington had 10. Off the bench, Devontae Graham had 18. Malik Monk had 10. For Memphis, Jay Crowder had 12. Brandon Clark had 16. John Morant had 15. And off the bench, Dylan Brooks had 11. Mavericks over the Thunder 107-70. Luka Doncic had 19 for Dallas. Kristaps Porzingis had 17. Max Kleber had 14. Off the bench, Justin Jackson had 12. Tim Hardaway Jr. had 13. Meanwhile, for the Thunder, Daniel Gallinari had 16. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 16. Kings over the Jazz 128-115. The Kings have had a pretty good preseason. Buddy Hield had 23. Marvin Bagley had 22. De'Aaron Fox had 14. Off the bench, Rashawn Holmes had 11. Yogi Ferrell had 10. Bogdanovich had 16. Meanwhile, for the Jazz, Donovan Mitchell had 22. Rudy Gobert had 17. Jeff Green had 12. Off the bench, Joe Ingles had 12. So it's interesting that Ingles might be the 12th man, a 6th man this year. So that's an interesting little nugget. Nuggets over the Suns, 107-102, so the Suns covered. Jeremy Grant had 22 points for Denver. Jamal Murray had 16. Gary Harris had 18. Off the bench, Michael Porter Jr. had 11. Mason Plumlee had 10. And meanwhile, for the Suns, Frank Kaminsky had 22. Kelly Oubre Jr. had 11. DeAndre Ayton had 14. The Lakers defeated the Warriors 104-98. LeBron and Anthony Davis, neither of those two guys played. Zach Norrell Jr. had 22 for LA. Contavious Caldwell-Pope had 11. Dwight Howard had 12. Off the bench, JaVale McGee had 11. Kuzma did not play either due to a stress reaction. Meanwhile, for the Warriors, Stephen Curry had 17. Marquise Chris had 14. Off the bench, Jacob Evans had 11. And Damian Lee had 18. Only 3 games tonight. 7 o'clock, the Timberwolves at the Pacers. NBA TV, the Pistons at the 76ers. And the Celtics at the Cavaliers. So a low NBA preseason slate for you guys tonight. Guess the lines, college football week number 8. Some of these lines have moved probably since I did the guessing the lines, so we'll just go by the lines where I have them as right now. Tomorrow night, South Alabama at Troy. I have Troy by 17.5. Troy's by 15. Thursday night, Louisiana at Arkansas State. I have Arkansas State by 3.5. Louisiana's by 5.5. Wow, everybody loves the Raging Cajuns right now. UCLA at Stanford. I have Stanford by 9. It's Stanford by 8. Friday, Marshall at FAU. I have FAU by 4.5. It's FAU by 5.5. Pitt at Syracuse. I have Syracuse by 3. It's Pitt by 3. Number 4, Ohio State at Northwestern. I have Ohio State by 24.5. It's 28. UNLV at Fresno State. I have Fresno by 7. It's Fresno by 15. Wow, I think that's big. On Saturday, number 3, Clemson at Louisville. I have Clemson by 21. It's 24. West Virginia at number 5, Oklahoma. I have Oklahoma by 33.5, and that's what the line is. So my first correct pick of the podcast, Oklahoma giving 33.5 against West Virginia. Number 6, Wisconsin at Illinois. I have Wisconsin by 26.5. It's 31. Number 9, Florida at South Carolina. I have Florida by 7. It's Florida by 5.5. Number 11, Auburn at Arkansas. I have Auburn by 13.5. It's 18.5. Purdue at number 23, Iowa. I have Iowa by 12. It's Iowa by 18. Houston at UConn. I have Houston by 30.5. It's 22. Kent State at Ohio. I have Ohio by 11.5. It's 7.5. Georgia Tech at Miami. I have Miami by 28.5. It's 18. NC State at Boston College. I have BC by 1. It's NC State by 2.5. And I almost picked NC State by 1.5, by the way. Iowa State at Texas Tech. I have State by 7. And that's what the line is. Second correct pick of the podcast. Iowa State giving 7 at Texas Tech. So, a couple Big 12 games I got there correct. Toledo at Ball State. I have Ball State by 1.5. It's Toledo by 1.5. So, again, Ball State, it's a dog. Central Michigan at Bowling Green. I have Central by 3. It's Central by 12. Northern Illinois at Miami of Ohio. I have Northern Illinois by 2. It's 1.5. TCU at Kansas State. I have Kansas State by 4.5. It's TCU by 3.5. Wow. Oregon State at Cal. I have Cal by 10.5. It's Cal by 10.5. So my third correct pick of the podcast. Cal giving 10.5 against Oregon State. New Mexico at Wyoming. I have Wyoming by 15.5. It's Wyoming by 19.5. Coastal Carolina at Georgia Southern. I have Georgia Southern by 3. It's Georgia Southern by 6.5. Number 2, LSU at Mississippi State. I have LSU by 20.5. It's LSU by 19. So I'll put 1.5 off. Number 12, Oregon at number 25, Washington. I have Oregon by 2.5. It's Oregon by 3. Temple at number 19, SMU. I have SMU by 7.5. And that's what the line is. So my fourth correct pick of the podcast, SMU giving 7.5 against Temple. Number 20, Minnesota at Rutgers. I have Minnesota by 16.5. It's Minnesota by 29. Wow. Tulsa at number 21, Cincinnati. I have Cincinnati by 16 and Cincinnati by 17. UL Monroe at number 24, Appalachian State. I have App State by 10.5. It's App State by 14.5. South Florida at Navy. I have Navy by 1.5. 11.5. It's Navy by 12.5. Buffalo at Akron. I have Buffalo by 17.5. It's Buffalo by 17.5. So my fifth correct pick of the podcast, Buffalo giving 17.5 at Akron. North Carolina at Virginia Tech. I have Va-Tech by 6. It's UNC by 3. Wow. Va-Tech getting points at home. Southern Miss at Louisiana Tech. I have La Tech by 3.5. It's La Tech by 1.5. Indiana at Maryland. I have Maryland by 7. Indiana by 3.5. Wow. Duke at Virginia by 8. It's Virginia by 3.5. Number 18, Baylor at Oklahoma State. I have Okie State by 1.5. It's Okie State by 3.5. Number 22, Missouri at Vanderbilt. I have Missouri by 18.5. It's Missouri by 21.5. 3 points off. Middle Tennessee at North Texas. I have North Texas by 7. It's North Texas by 10. Old Dominion at UAB. I have UAB by 16.5. It's UAB by 16. Charlotte at Western Kentucky. I have Western Kentucky by 7. It's Western by 9.5. Kentucky at number 10, Georgia. I have Georgia by 26. It's Georgia by 25. Number 17, Arizona State at number 13, Utah. I have Utah by 8. It's Utah by 13.5. Rice at UTSA. I have UTSA by 7.5. Rice by 4. What are they thinking with that line? Maine at Liberty, not yet posted, but I have Liberty by 28 against Maine. Kansas at number 15, Texas. I have Texas by 34.5. Texas by 21.5. Wow. I think that that line's off. East Carolina at UCF. I have UCF by 24.5. It's UCF by 34. San Diego State at San Jose State. I have San Diego State by 3. San Diego State by 7.5. Tulane at Memphis. I have Memphis by 10.5. It's Memphis by 4.5. Western Michigan and Eastern Michigan. I have Western by 1.5. It's Western by 9.5. Colorado at Washington State. I have the Cougars by 6.5. It's Cougars by 13.5. Army at Georgia State. I have Army by 2. Army by 6.5. UTEP at FIU. I have FIU by 9.5. FIU by 22.5. Number 16, Michigan at number 7, Penn State. I have Penn State by 2. It's Penn State by 8.5. Texas A&M at Ole Miss. I have A&M by 7.5. It's A&M by 6. Florida State at Wake. I have Wake by 4.5. Wake by 2. Tennessee at number 1, Alabama. I have Bama by 38.5. It's 34.5. Arizona at USC. I have SC by 8.5. It's SC by 9, so a half point off. Number 14, Boise State at BYU. I have Boise by 14. Boise's only favored by 6.5. Nevada at Utah State. I have Utah State by 5. It's Utah State by 21. And Air Force at Hawaii. I have Hawaii by 1. It's Air Force by 3. So I have 5 correct picks for Guess the Lines in college. I think that's the most I've gotten right in the college portion of this since I started doing these last year on the podcast. Now to NFL Week 7 Guess the Lines. We're going to start with Thursday Night Football. Chiefs at the Broncos. I have the Chiefs by 4.5. It's 3.5. Sunday, Rams at the Falcons. I have Rams by 4. It's Rams by 3. Dolphins at the Bills. I have Bills by 10.5. It's 17. Wow. Jaguars at the Bills. I have Jags by 5. It's Jags by 3. Vikings at the Lions. I have Minnesota by 3. It's a pick'em. Raiders at the Packers. I have Packers by 9.5. It's Packers by 6.5. Texans at the Colts. I have Colts by 1. Colts by 1.5. Cardinals at the Giants. I have Giants by 3. That was the line. So that my first correct pick of the NFL portion against the lines. Giants getting 3 at home against the Cardinals. I think that goes up if Saquon Barkley's ruled active. They'll go up to 4.5 because he's worth 1.5 to the point spread, according to R.J. Bell, who's a pro at this stuff. 49ers at the Redskins. I have Niners by 7.5. It's Niners by 10. Chargers at the Titans. I have that as a pick'em, and it's Titans by 1. Saints at the Bears. I have a couple projected lines. I'm going to say it's Trubisky versus Bridgewater. So if that's the case, I'm going to say Bears by 3, and that's what the line is. So my second correct pick of the podcast, Bears giving 3 against the Saints. Ravens at the Seahawks. I have Seahawks by 4, and Seahawks by 3.5. Eagles at the Cowboys. I have Cowboys by 3, and that's what the line is. So the third correct pick of the podcast, the Cowboys giving 3 against the Eagles. And then Monday Night Football, Patriots at the Jets. I have Pats by 10.5. It's 9.5. So 3 correct picks in the NFL portion of Guess the Lines. Best bet of the day brought to you by DraftKings. I am obviously going to take the Astros and the Nationals in this because it just seems so easy, right, guys? Taking the 2 favorites to win their respective games. It's just so simple to just take the Astros and the Nats. So that brings us to plus 161. We're going to go to hockey, and we'll take the Maple Leafs at home against the Minnesota Wild. I'm going to avoid the Canadiens Lightning game because I could see a world where the Canadiens end up upsetting the Lightning, even though I picked them to win. And I'm going to take the Canucks at home against the Red Wings. I don't feel super about it, but I just like the spot. Red Wings on the West Coast. And then the Hurricanes at the Kings. So that's 5, 9.29 odds, wagering 54 cents, payout of $5.56. That's it for the podcast today. I'll be back tomorrow recapping the 2 baseball playoff games, NHL, NBA preseason, NFL power rankings coming for you tomorrow, bowl projections for week 8 for college coming for you as well, and any other news that happens around the world of sports, as well as my best bet.